What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a new Netflix movie, the newest one from Zack Snyder. Oh yeah, this is a touchy subject for me because I am not the biggest fan of Zack Snyder at all. But I'm going to be talking about Rebel Moon, Part 1, A Child of Fire. This movie stars Sophia Boutella, Anthony Hopkins, Ray Fisher, Cleopatra Coleman, Jenna Malone, Charlie Hunnam, and is a sci-fi space epic that was pitched as a Star Wars movie, and then Lucasfilm said no, so Zack Snyder reworked it to make it its own original thing. When a peaceful colony on the edge of the galaxy finds itself threatened by the armies of the tyrannical Regent Belisarius, they dispatch Cora, a young woman with a mysterious past, to seek out warriors from neighboring planets to help them take a stand. As I said at the onset of this review, I'm not the biggest Zack Snyder fan. I've been very critical of his work in DC. His Snyder Cut is by far his best work in DC, but I don't think it's amazing or anything. It's definitely a major improvement over the theatrical cut of Justice League. I think we've all termed Justice League, so it is a massive improvement over that. But Snyder, for me, has always been a visual storyteller. He's always known how to assemble a movie from a technical standpoint. He or his cinematographers, because he's the cinematographer on this movie, really shoot the movie well. You have gorgeous visuals, as is the case with this movie. The CGI is almost top-notch, and the costume design, practical effects, and the visual effects are where his expertise are, and where I think he really fails as a director is in the writing department. I really do think that he should just stick to directing. Writing is not his strong suit, and because of that, most of his movies fail to impress me because the characters and the story are not good. And that's really how I felt with Rebel Moon. Really was interested to see what this would be like. It doesn't feel all that original, honestly, but there are gorgeous visuals to look at here. It does strike his style as if he looks like he's adapting a graphic novel. A lot of grays, darks, some light shining in when light needs to be shining in. There's a scene like in the opening scene of the movie where it's Sophia Boutella's character Cora against the backdrop of like a setting sun, and it looks amazing. So there's visuals like that. I think the visual effects for this movie are really good. He knows how to get the best out of his actors. I think everybody does a really good job here. The sets and the set design for what this world is going for are really interesting and look really cool and look original to a Zack Snyder movie, a sci-fi movie at that. I like the different creature designs that were in this movie, the different alien designs. I think he really took the time to make it feel as original as he could, but I just couldn't help but feel like this was regurgitated from other things that he took inspiration from, particularly Star Wars and Seven Samurai. It just feels like all of that just rolled into this movie, just a darker, grittier, edgier version of those movies. And that's really when I have been very critical of Zack Snyder. Take Batman vs. Superman, for instance. To me, that movie felt like, I know I'm going to rub people the wrong way by saying this, but when Zack Snyder made that movie, it really just felt like a frat boy who just wanted to make a movie. It felt like some dude was in a fraternity, read a bunch of Batman graphic novels and said that's the characterization of Batman, and he just made a graphic novel out of Batman instead of and Superman, and just thought that every superhero had to be like that. And I feel like that's Zack Snyder's idea for everything almost. There's a lot of slow-mo in this movie. Not as much as people were hyping it up to be. I've always found slow-mo to be a gimmick. Zack Snyder isn't the inventor of slow-mo, but he is somebody who has popularized slow-mo with 300 back in 2006, and I feel like at this point in time, that gimmick is just so outdated, but it did work here for me somehow. Did make the action scenes a little bit more inventive. When the action is happening, I was actually having a pretty good time. That's the thing. Zack Snyder can make a really good action scene. In a really bad movie or a mediocre movie, the warehouse scene in BVS is by far the best action scene he filmed and made in his run with DC. And there are many action scenes in this movie where I was starting to get hyped up, but I was just let down by weak characters other than the main character Korra, who I think is a fantastic character, but all the supporting characters. Here's how this movie is structured. You're introduced to Korra on this planet. You don't know all that much about her, but as the movie goes on, you learn more about her, and that's why you become attached to her as a character. But when she's actually going to rebel against the mother world, the movie really is just, we're going to go to this place, recruit these people, and there's an exposition dump. Rinse and repeat. It's regurgitated. And that structure just didn't sit well with me. This movie doesn't follow through on the idea of show, don't tell. This movie just tells you everything you need to know, and those characters are just so hollow because you don't learn anything about them. You really just go to these planets, they pick them up, and then they're on the ride. And then there might be some allegiances that might change here and there, but the motivations are never clear. And the story here, it never really caught my attention, despite some really cool visuals and the technical achievements that Snyder is able to accomplish with this movie and with all his movies, honestly. And for most of the runtime, other than the action scenes and the fun action scenes, even with the slow-mo, I did feel like I was starting to tread very familiar water. It made me kind of check out of the movie. I think that this is a movie that definitely has a lot of potential. I am definitely going to see part 2. I'm definitely going to check out part 2 to see if the world building is actually built up a little bit more and see if there's a little bit more originality. You can tell where the influences from Star Wars come from. You can tell where the influences from Seven Samurai come from. I mean, there's literally a character who has swords that can catch fire, and when they catch fire, they look like lightsabers. So there you go. There's a bunch of Star Wars influences. It feels like a darker version of Rogue One, honestly. That was what came to mind. Just left me feeling a little empty with all that. In the world building, it didn't do much for me because I felt like all the planets, as visually appealing as this movie is, because Snyder uses a lot of dark colors in the movies that he makes, really do feel like graphic novels that leap off the page and onto the screen. Even though this is an original movie of his, there wasn't really much to distinguish other than the costumes, the different creatures of these different planets that all these people go to. So yeah, it's a technical achievement. I think it looks visually appealing for the most part. Zack Snyder knows how to assemble a movie. He shoots it really well, he directs it really well, but a writer, he is not. And his co-writers, definitely. He's had Kurt Johnstad as a co-writer for a while now. Their screenplays are always so hollow, and it's the same here. The world building, the characters just suck except for Korra. The subtlety isn't here, and the story just doesn't catch my attention. It just feels like regurgitated stories that I've already seen on screen multiple times before. It doesn't feel original at all. I enjoyed Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, with half a bucket of popcorn. It's not as bad as critics are saying it is. I don't think it's going to win over people who are non-Snyder fans, though. I'm always interested to see what he does, even if I hate it, because he's such a mixed bag of a director. 300 was cool when it came out. I don't know if I would call 300 a good movie now, but it's a cool movie. I think Watchmen's his best movie. Man of Steel's okay. BVS I fucking hate. I don't really count the theatrical cut of Justice League because I think they kind of did him dirty with that. And his Justice League director's cut is fine and much better than the theatrical cut. But, he's always a director who I think has really good ideas on paper. It's just the execution is never there on screen. So if you have seen Rebel Moon Part 1, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. I'll leave my links to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.